I am Sherry, 29 years old, sitting in the back row at my brother Jake's Harvard graduation. The contrast could not be clearer. He holds an Ivy League degree, while I have only a community college education. All my life, I have been labeled the dumb one. While Jake was celebrated as the genius, today, my father will announce that Jake inherits everything: our $50 million company, a Tesla, and our Manhattan mansion. What nobody knows is that a stranger is about to hand me an envelope that will change everything. Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever felt underestimated like me. Growing up in the Lawrence family meant privilege, wealth, and impossible expectations. Our sprawling estate in the Hamptons, with its manicured gardens and infinity pool, was the envy of many, but behind those perfect white columns lay a childhood marked by constant comparison and subtle emotional neglect. My father, Thomas Lawrence, built Lawrence Technologies from nothing into a $50 million empire. A self-made tech mogul with piercing blue eyes that could strip you bare, he demanded nothing short of excellence with just a glance. His success story was legendary in New York business circles. The son of a factory worker who coded his first software in a garage apartment, he transformed his brilliant mind and relentless work ethic into a fortune. Every dinner conversation inevitably circled back to business innovation and the legacy he was building. My mother, Eleanor, a former beauty queen who transitioned seamlessly into Manhattan high society, complemented his ambition with her obsession with appearances. Her days revolved around charity galas, social events, and maintaining our family's image. Her flawless blonde hair and immaculate designer outfits were as much a part of her identity as her talent for networking with the right people. For my mother, perception was everything. Then there was Jake, my brother, for years younger than me but treated like the crown prince from the moment he could talk. By age 3, he was completing puzzles meant for children twice his age. By 5, he was reading chapter books and solving math problems that left my parents beaming with pride. His intelligence was undeniable, and my parents never let me forget it. I was 8 when I first noticed the difference in how we were treated. I had spent weeks working on a science project about the water cycle, carefully crafting clouds from cotton balls and painting a landscape that showed evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. The night before it was due, I proudly displayed it on the dining room table. Father glanced at it briefly. "Not bad, Sherry. But make sure you understand the actual science. Not just the art part." 2 hours later, Jake toddled in with a simple circuit he had built with Father, making a small light bulb glow. Father called Mother in to witness this miracle. "Look at this, Eleanor. 4 years old and already understanding electrical circuits. This boy is going to change the world someday." No one mentioned my project again. The pattern continued throughout elementary school. My report cards with B's and the occasional C were met with tight smiles and comments about needing to apply myself more. Jake brought home nothing but notes from teachers about his exceptional abilities. Each perfect grade was celebrated. Each academic achievement was commemorated. What no one bothered to notice was how hard I tried. I spent hours staring at pages that seemed to swim before my eyes, letters jumbling and rearranging themselves no matter how much I concentrated. Math problems that seemed simple to others required triple the effort for me to solve. But whenever I asked for help, the response was always some variation of, "You just need to focus more, Sherry." Look at how easily Jake grasps these concepts. By 6th grade, the roles in our family were firmly established. Jake was the genius, the future of Lawrence Technologies. I was the disappointment, the one who simply did not measure up. The divide grew more pronounced when I entered 8th grade. My science fair project that year was on sound waves, and I had spent months researching and building a demonstration of how different frequencies affected water patterns. The night before the fair, I practiced my presentation for the family. Father checked his watch repeatedly during my explanation. When I finished, he nodded absently. "Sounds interesting enough. Just try not to mumble during the actual presentation. You know how that makes you sound." Then Jake, not even in middle school yet, bounded in with a complex computer program he had written that could calculate prime numbers. Father spent the next 2 hours sitting with him, discussing algorithms and efficiency, completely forgetting about my science fair. The next day, Mother was no better. Her concerns centered on appearances rather than achievements. "Sherry, you really should do something with your hair for the science fair, and that outfit does nothing for your figure. First impressions matter." The only person who seemed to see me was Mrs. Wilson, our housekeeper. She had been with the family since before I was born, and her kind eyes missed nothing. That evening she found me crying in my room. "Your project is wonderful, Sherry," she said, sitting beside me on the bed. "Different kinds of intelligence are valuable in this world. Someday they will see that." I clung to those words through years of being overshadowed. Through every dismissive comment and every celebration that centered on Jake while I stood in the background, smiling and applauding as expected. The Hamptons mansion became both my home and my prison. Its spacious rooms and expensive furnishings were a constant reminder of the privilege that should have made me happy, but instead left me feeling like an imposter in my own life. I retreated into books and art, finding worlds where I could escape the constant feeling of inadequacy. Every family photo told the same story: father standing tall and proud, mother elegant and poised, Jake front and center with his awards or latest accomplishment, and me slightly to the side, the awkward addition who never quite fit the Lawrence success narrative. The weekends were the worst. Father would take Jake golfing with business associates or to the office to show him the workings of Lawrence Technologies. Mother would attend her social functions, occasionally bringing me along, but always introducing Jake as our little genius before quickly mentioning that I was there, too. By the time I reached high school, I had accepted my place in the family hierarchy, the quiet disappointment, the one who would never quite measure up to the Lawrence name. What I did not know then was that my struggle had a name, and that my path would eventually lead me to a revelation that would shake our family to its core. But that understanding was still years away, buried under layers of self-doubt and the weight of never being quite good enough. High school intensified the disparities in how Jake and I were treated. While I struggled through regular classes, Jake was already taking advanced placement courses at just 13, having skipped 2 grades due to his exceptional abilities. My parents never tired of telling anyone who would listen about their prodigy son. I worked twice as hard as my classmates for half the results. Late nights bent over textbooks, weekends sacrificed to studying rather than socializing, all to earn B's and the occasional C, that received nothing more than a passing nod from my parents. Meanwhile, Jake breezed through material years beyond his age level, earning perfect scores with seemingly little effort. The breaking point came during my sophomore year. I overheard a conversation that confirmed my worst fears about how my father viewed me. It was parent-teacher conference night, and I had forgotten my jacket in the classroom. As I approached to retrieve it, I heard my father speaking to my English teacher. "Sherry has always been the disappointment academically," he said, his voice carrying that familiar tone of resignation. "We have tried everything, but she simply does not have the Lawrence aptitude. At least we have Jake to carry on the family legacy." I froze outside the door, my heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. It was one thing to suspect how they felt, another entirely to hear it stated so plainly. I retrieved my jacket the next day instead and never mentioned what I had heard. That same year, I discovered photography. My art teacher, Miss Brennan, noticed my eye for composition and encouraged me to join the photography club. Behind the lens, I discovered a world where my dyslexia did not matter, a world where I could express myself without struggling with words or numbers. For the first time, I excelled at something. When I showed my parents the photographs selected for the school art show, Mother tilted her head and said, "That is a nice hobby, dear. But do not let it distract from your academic studies." Father barely glanced at them. "The real world runs on technology and business acumen, Sherry. Not artistic hobbies." Their dismissal hurt, but I had grown accustomed to the pain. I continued taking photographs, finding solace in capturing moments of beauty and truth that my parents could not diminish. It was through the photography club that I met Danielle, who became my first true friend. Tall, with wild curly hair and an infectious laugh, she saw me, really saw me, in a way no one in my life ever had. "These are amazing, Sherry," she said the first time she saw my work. "You have a gift for finding beauty in unexpected places." Her words were a balm to my wounded spirit. With Danielle, I could simply be myself. No expectations, no comparisons, no disappointment. My 16th birthday crystallized my place in the family. Mother had promised a small celebration dinner. I invited only Danielle, not wanting to draw attention to my lack of other close friends. The day before, Jake won a prestigious youth science award. My parents immediately planned an elaborate celebration for him, coincidentally on the same day as my birthday dinner. I sat at one end of our long dining table with Danielle while 20 of my parents' friends and business associates fawned over Jake at the other end. My birthday cake was brought out as an afterthought, most of the candles already melted into the frosting because everyone was too busy listening to Jake explain his award-winning project. "Happy birthday, sweetie," Mother said distractedly before turning back to Jake and his admirers. Later that night, Danielle hugged me tightly before leaving. "You deserve so much better, Sherry." It was during junior year that Miss Castillo, my school counselor, first suggested I might have a learning disability. She had noticed patterns in my academic struggles that seemed at odds with my obvious intelligence. "Have you ever been tested for dyslexia?" she asked during one of our meetings. When I brought up the possibility to my parents, they dismissed it immediately. "The Lawrence family does not have learning disabilities," Mother said firmly. "You simply need to apply yourself more diligently." Father was even more dismissive. "That is just an excuse for not working hard enough. If you put in the effort Jake does, you would see better results." Unwilling to let it go, I spoke with my English teacher, Mr. Diaz, who had shown me kindness and patience. Without telling my parents, he helped me develop strategies to work around what we both suspected was dyslexia. With his guidance, my grades improved slightly, though the improvement went largely unnoticed at home. The ultimate confirmation of my secondary status came when Jake, at just 16, received early acceptance to Harvard. My parents threw an extravagant party with over 100 guests. Father made a speech about the Lawrence legacy of excellence continuing into the next generation, while mother wiped away proud tears. I stood in the background, the beautiful sister smiling and congratulating Jake while feeling increasingly invisible. My own high school graduation 4 months later was treated as a minor event. Father had an important business meeting that morning and arrived just as the ceremony was ending. Mother attended, but spent most of the time on her phone coordinating details for a charity gala she was chairing. There was no party. Just a quiet dinner at home where the conversation quickly turned to Jake's upcoming freshman year at Harvard. That summer, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I announced that I would be moving out and attending the local community college. Community college? Mother echoed, her voice dripping with disdain. But what will people think? Father sighed heavily. If that is the best you can manage, I suppose we have to accept it. Not everyone can be Harvard material. The word stung, but I held firm. With money saved from a part-time job at a local photography studio, I rented a small apartment near the community college. It was tiny, with just enough room for a bed, desk, and my photography equipment, but it was mine, a space where I was not constantly reminded of my inadequacy. The day I moved out, Mrs. Wilson hugged me tightly. "Sometimes you need to leave to find yourself," she whispered. "I am proud of you, Sherry." Her words gave me strength as I embarked on a new chapter, determined to define myself on my own terms, away from the shadow of Lawrence expectations. Community college became my unexpected salvation. During my first semester, a perceptive English professor suggested I get formally tested for learning disabilities. The results confirmed what Miss Castillo had suspected years earlier: I had moderate to severe dyslexia. Far from being devastated by the diagnosis, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. My struggles had a name. I was not stupid, lazy, or disappointing. My brain simply processed information differently. With proper accommodations like extended test times, text-to-speech software, and alternative assessment methods, I began to thrive academically for the first time in my life. I wish I could say I immediately shared this revelation with my family, but years of dismissal and diminishment had taught me caution. Instead, I kept my diagnosis and newfound academic success to myself, a private victory that no one could diminish with comparisons to Jake. It was during my second year that I met Professor Amanda Taylor, who would change the trajectory of my life. Tall and commanding, with silver-streaked dark hair, she taught computer science with a passion that made even the most complex concepts accessible. After class one day, she called me to her desk. "You have a unique way of approaching problems, Sherry," she said, showing me my latest assignment. "Where most students follow the standard algorithms, you consistently find creative workarounds. That is a rare and valuable skill." For someone who had been told all her life that she was the disappointment, hearing that I possessed something rare and valuable was like water in a desert. Professor Taylor invited me to join a small research group she was mentoring, and I accepted immediately. Under her guidance, I was introduced to coding and technology on my own terms, without the pressure of family expectations or inevitable comparisons to Jake. To my surprise, I discovered a natural talent for it. My dyslexia, which had been such an obstacle in traditional academic settings, gave me a different perspective on pattern recognition and problem solving that proved advantageous in programming. My nonlinear thinking helped me visualize solutions others missed, and Professor Taylor encouraged me to develop this strength. She introduced me to various assistive technologies for people with learning disabilities, and I was struck by how inadequate many of them were. Most had been designed by people who did not truly understand the challenges they were trying to address. That was when the idea first took root. What if I could create something better? Something that truly understood and addressed the needs of people like me. I began spending every free moment in the computer lab, teaching myself additional programming languages and studying user experience design. Nights, weekends, holidays, all dedicated to my growing project. I started small, creating a simple browser extension that adjusted text display for easier reading by dyslexic users. When I showed it to Professor Taylor, her eyes lit up. "This has real potential, Sherry. Have you thought about expanding it?" Her encouragement was all I needed. Over the next months, my project grew into a comprehensive accessibility software platform designed specifically for people with learning disabilities. I named it Phoenix Reader after the mythical bird that rises from ashes, just as I was rising from the ashes of my former self-perception. All this time, I maintained minimal contact with my family. Occasional holiday dinners and obligatory family events were exercises in restraint as I listened to detailed accounts of Jake's Harvard triumphs. He was double majoring in computer science and business, interning at major tech companies during summers, and being groomed to eventually take over Lawrence Technologies. During one particularly painful Christmas dinner, Father presented Jake with a brand new Tesla. "This is just a taste of what awaits you once you graduate and join the company," he said proudly. My gift was a $200 gift card to a department store. The disparity might have crushed me once. But I was building something of my own now, something that gave me purpose beyond seeking parental approval. The turning point came at a small technology showcase organized by the community college. I had entered Phoenix Reader, and to my surprise, it attracted attention. One attendee in particular, a tall man with kind eyes and a thoughtful demeanor, spent nearly an hour asking me detailed questions about the software, its capabilities, and my vision for its future. His name was Samuel Wright, and he introduced himself as a venture capitalist interested in accessibility technology. When he handed me his business card, I nearly dropped it. Wright Investments was one of the most respected VC firms in the tech industry, known for backing innovative startups that went on to become industry leaders. "Your software has tremendous potential," he said. "Would you be interested in discussing it further?" That meeting led to several more. Samuel became not just a potential investor but a mentor, guiding me through the complexities of turning my project into a viable business. Under his advisement, I continued developing the software while completing my associate degree. "I would love to introduce you to some potential investors," Samuel said after reviewing my latest prototype. "But they will want to know who they are backing. Your story, your personal connection to this technology, is a powerful part of its appeal." I hesitated. The thought of putting myself forward, of potentially attracting attention that might get back to my family, made me deeply uncomfortable. I was not ready for that confrontation, for the inevitable dismissal of my achievement. "What if I used a pseudonym?" I suggested. "Just until the product is established enough to speak for itself." Samuel considered this. "It is unusual but not unheard of. Some founders do prefer to remain anonymous initially." "What did you have in mind?" "S.L. Turner," I said after a moment of thought. Turner had been my maternal grandmother's maiden name, one of the few family connections I still cherished. "All right, S.L. Turner it is, for now," Samuel agreed. "But eventually, you will need to step into the light." With Samuel's guidance, I prepared to present Phoenix Reader to a group of investors. The night before the presentation, I received a text from Jake, rare enough to be noteworthy. "Dad gave me the junior executive position at Lawrence Tech today. Wish you could have been there. Miss you." I stared at the message, a complex mix of emotions swirling through me. Part of me was happy for Jake, who had never been anything but kind to me despite our parents' differential treatment. Another part ached with the familiar pain of exclusion. And a new part, one growing stronger every day, whispered that soon, very soon, I would have achievements of my own to celebrate. The next day, my presentation to the investors was a resounding success. Phoenix Reader received seed funding of $1.5 million, enough to establish Phoenix Software as a legitimate startup and hire a small team of developers to help refine the product. Throughout this period, I maintained my anonymity as S.L. Turner, communicating with my team remotely and letting Samuel be the public face of the company when necessary. While my professional life flourished in secret, family gatherings continued to be exercises in invisibility. Just before the official launch of Phoenix Reader, the software won a prestigious innovation award. The anonymous creator, S.L. Turner, became the subject of industry speculation. Who was this mysterious developer who had created such groundbreaking accessibility software? As I watched the coverage from my apartment, I felt a surge of validation. My work, born from my own struggles and perseverance, was being recognized on its own merits. No family name, no connections, just pure innovation and determination. The next time I saw my family at Thanksgiving, I sat quietly as Father and Jake discussed Lawrence Technologies' business strategies. Mother asked about my little photography hobby, apparently forgetting that I had graduated with a degree in computer science. "I am working on a project," I said vaguely. "Something I believe in." Father nodded distractedly. "That is nice, dear. Jake, tell us more about the new client acquisition strategy you are proposing." I smiled into my cranberry sauce, holding my secret close. Soon, very soon, they would not be able to dismiss me so easily. After securing initial funding, I formally established Phoenix Software LLC, with myself as the sole proprietor operating under the pseudonym S.L. Turner. Samuel connected me with his network of tech industry contacts, many of whom were impressed by both the software and the mysterious founder narrative we had created. With money in the bank and a growing team of talented developers working remotely, Phoenix Reader evolved from a simple browser extension into a comprehensive suite of accessibility tools. We expanded beyond dyslexia to address multiple learning differences, creating customizable solutions that could adapt to individual needs. To maintain my anonymity, I set up a private office in a co-working space across town from my apartment. My team believed I was simply a private person who preferred to work independently, not realizing that SL Turner was hiding a much more personal story. Within 18 months of launch, Phoenix Software was no longer just a promising startup. Major educational institutions began adopting our platform, followed by corporate clients who recognized the value of making their systems more accessible. Revenue grew exponentially, and suddenly I found myself at the helm of a multi-million-dollar company that was changing lives. Each success email from users reinforced that I was on the right path. Messages poured in from students who could finally read without struggle, professionals who no longer had to hide their learning differences, and parents grateful that their children now had tools I never had. "Thank you for giving me back my confidence," one user wrote. "For the first time in my life, I do not feel stupid." Those words resonated deeply. I printed that email and kept it pinned above my desk as a reminder of why Phoenix mattered. As Phoenix Software grew, I reinvested most of the profits back into research and development. Determined to stay at the cutting edge of accessibility technology, we expanded into mobile applications, AI-assisted learning, and even began developing hardware specifically designed for users with various learning differences. 3 years after launch, Phoenix Software was valued at over $200 million. Business publications began speculating about the identity of the reclusive founder. Who was SL Turner, and why did they remain in the shadows while their company transformed the accessibility landscape? The irony of my situation became even more pronounced when Lawrence Technologies, my father's company, began losing market share to newer, more innovative firms, including Phoenix. Their educational software division, once a market leader, was particularly affected by our superior accessibility features. During a rare family dinner, I listened as father complained about changing market dynamics. "These upstart companies with their flashy new features are eating into our core business," he grumbled. "Especially that Phoenix Software with their accessibility nonsense. What is wrong with making software more accessible?" I asked, keeping my voice casual while my heart raced. Father waved a dismissive hand. "It is a niche market, not worth the development costs for such a small user base." Jake, to his credit, disagreed. "Actually, Dad, I think Phoenix is onto something. Learning disabilities affect a significant percentage of the population. Making technology more accessible isn't just good ethics, it is good business." Father scoffed. "Well, when you take over the company, you can waste resources on that if you want. Speaking of which, Jake graduates in 3 months. We should start planning the celebration." And just like that, I was invisible again. As Jake's Harvard graduation approached, the pressure from my investors to reveal myself as SL Turner intensified. Phoenix was preparing for a major new product launch, and my continued anonymity was becoming a liability rather than an asset. Samuel called me into his office for a serious conversation. "Sherry, it is time," he said gently. "Phoenix has outgrown the mysterious founder narrative. The company needs a face, a story, a leader who can stand in the spotlight." "I know," I admitted. "I have been thinking about it too. May I ask what is holding you back? Is it just about privacy, or is there something more?" I hesitated, then decided to trust him with the full truth. I told him about growing up as the disappointment, about being labeled the dumb one while Jake was the genius, about years of dismissal and diminishment. Samuel listened without interruption, his expression thoughtful. "So, your family has no idea that you founded Phoenix, that you are SL Turner?" "None. They think I have some vague job in tech support or something. They never ask for details." "And Jake's graduation?" "I have been invited. Father is planning to make some big announcement about Jake's future and the family legacy." Samuel leaned forward, his eyes intent. "Sherry, I do not believe in coincidences. The timing of this, Jake's graduation and our need to reveal you as Phoenix's founder, feels significant. Perhaps the universe is offering you an opportunity." "For what?" "For closure, for vindication, for finally being seen." The thought terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. "I am not suggesting you do this for revenge," Samuel continued. "Revenge is hollow. But there is power in standing in your truth, in no longer hiding your light." I considered his words carefully. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Samuel smiled. "I have some ideas, but first I need to know if you are ready to tell the world, and your family, who you really are." After a long moment, I nodded. "Yes. I think it is time." Over the next weeks, as Jake's graduation approached, Samuel and I prepared for what we came to call Operation Phoenix Reveal. Legal documents were drawn up, press releases drafted, and a comprehensive communication strategy developed. The week before the graduation, I received a formal invitation to Jake's celebration dinner. Father had rented out an entire upscale restaurant for the occasion. The invitation mentioned a special announcement regarding the future of Lawrence Technologies. "Perfect timing," Samuel said when I showed him. "Are you ready?" I took a deep breath. Ready as I will ever be. The day before the graduation, Phoenix Software filed paperwork for a significant business move, one that would remain confidential until the following day. As I packed my bag for the trip to Cambridge, I found myself surprisingly calm. After years of hiding in shadows, of diminishing myself to avoid disapproval, I was finally ready to step into the light. Whatever happened next, I would face it as my authentic self, not as the disappointment or the invisible daughter, but as Sherry Lawrence, founder and CEO of Phoenix Software. Samuel prepared a special envelope containing documents that would change everything. His parting words stayed with me as I boarded my flight to Boston. "Remember, Sherry, tomorrow is not about proving them wrong. It is about proving yourself right." Harvard Yard bloomed with promise on Jake's graduation day. Red and white flowers adorned the paths between historic buildings, and proud families gathered in clusters, snapping photos and sharing congratulations. I arrived alone, dressed in a simple but elegant navy blue dress I had carefully selected for the occasion. This day would be memorable for reasons no one could anticipate. Spotting my parents near the entrance to the ceremony area, I took a deep breath and approached. Mother noticed me first, her practiced social smile shifting slightly as she assessed my appearance. "Sherry, you made it," she said, air kissing near my cheek. "That dress is actually quite flattering on you. Hides your problem areas nicely." Some things never changed. Father acknowledged me with a brief nod before immediately returning to a conversation with one of Jake's professors about the latest technological innovations. I was used to this routine, the polite recognition followed by immediate dismissal. We found our seats for the ceremony, my parents in the reserved family section near the front, while I was seated several rows behind them. Even in seating arrangements, the hierarchy was clear. As I waited for the ceremony to begin, I overheard snippets of my parents' conversations with other prestigious families. "Our Jake is graduating summa cum laude," Mother informed another elegantly dressed woman. "He has already been offered executive positions at several major tech companies, but of course he will be joining Lawrence Technologies. The family legacy, you know?" The woman nodded appreciatively. "And your daughter?" she asked, glancing back in my direction. Mother's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Sherry is finding her way. Not everyone has Jake's gifts." The familiar sting had lost much of its power. Today, it barely registered. The ceremony itself was predictably long, filled with speeches about bright futures and world-changing potential. When Jake's name was called, my parents stood and applauded enthusiastically. I clapped too, genuinely proud of my brother's accomplishment despite everything else. Jake looked handsome in his cap and gown, his confident stride as he crossed the stage a reflection of his comfort in this world of academic achievement. As he accepted his diploma, he scanned the audience and, finding me, gave a small private smile and nod. That brief acknowledgement meant more than he could know. After the ceremony, the Lawrence contingent moved to Cambridge, to an exclusive restaurant Father had reserved entirely for Jake's graduation celebration. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over white linen tablecloths, and waitstaff moved efficiently between tables, pouring champagne for the 50 or so guests Father had deemed worthy of invitation. I was seated at a table near the back, far from the main family table where Jake sat, flanked by our parents and several important business associates. The seating chart was yet another reminder of my peripheral status in the family narrative. Midway through the meal, Father stood and tapped his glass for attention. The room gradually quieted as he prepared to make his announcement. Mother beamed at his side, while Jake looked somewhat uncomfortable, shifting slightly in his seat. "Today we celebrate not just an academic achievement, but a milestone in the Lawrence legacy," Father began, his voice carrying the authority of a man accustomed to commanding attention. 25 years ago, I founded Lawrence Technologies with a vision of transforming the digital landscape. Today, that vision has come to fruition in ways I could never have imagined. He paused, surveying the room with satisfaction. "But every founder must consider the future. Who will carry the torch when I step aside? Who possesses the brilliance, the drive, the Lawrence spirit needed to take our company to even greater heights?" The question was rhetorical. Everyone knew what was coming. It gives me immense pride to announce that Jake will be joining Lawrence Technologies as Executive Vice President, with a clear path to assuming the role of CEO within 5 years. Applause broke out around the room. Jake smiled modestly, though I noticed a certain tension around his eyes. Father raised his hand, indicating he had more to say. "But that is not all. To ensure Jake has everything he needs to succeed, I am gifting him today the following: 25% ownership of Lawrence Technologies, currently valued at approximately $50 million. Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the crowd. Additionally, father continued, a brand new Tesla Model S, fully customized to his specifications. More approving nods followed. And finally, our family property in Manhattan, recently appraised at $16 million, will be transferred to Jake's name upon my retirement. The announcement was met with enthusiastic applause. Mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, the very picture of maternal pride. Almost as an afterthought, father added, and of course, Sherry will receive a modest trust fund to ensure her continued comfort. A few guests glanced in my direction, expressions ranging from pity to disinterest. I maintained a neutral expression, sipping my water and waiting. Father raised his glass in a toast. To Jake Lawrence, the future of our family legacy. Everyone stood, glasses raised, echoing the sentiment. I rose too, glass in hand, my expression revealing nothing of the emotions churning beneath the surface. As the meal continued, business associates and family friends stopped by Jake's table to offer congratulations and discuss future opportunities. No one approached my table. I was, as always, a footnote in the Lawrence story. Mother made her way through the room, accepting congratulations as if Jake's achievement were primarily her own. She paused briefly at my table. Try the chocolate torte, dear, though perhaps just half a portion for you, she suggested, her gaze flicking critically over my figure before she moved on to more important guests. Father remained stationed near Jake, introducing him to influential contacts and outlining their vision for the future of Lawrence Technologies. I caught fragments of their conversations, plans for expansion, new product lines, strategies to regain market share lost to more innovative competitors like Phoenix Software. The irony was almost too perfect. Jake seemed increasingly uncomfortable as the evening progressed, his smile becoming more forced with each introduction and expectation placed upon him. At one point, our eyes met across the room, and I saw something like an apology in his gaze. As dessert was being served, the restaurant door opened, and Samuel Wright entered. Tall and distinguished in a perfectly tailored suit, he commanded attention without effort. Father noticed him immediately, his expression registering surprise followed by keen interest. Samuel Wright's reputation in the business world made him a valuable potential contact. I watched as Samuel exchanged brief pleasantries with a few guests before making his way directly toward my table. Father tracked his movement. Confusion evident when Samuel bypassed the main family table and headed straight for me. Samuel, I said quietly as he reached me, right on time. He smiled warmly. I would not miss this for the world. With deliberate care, he removed an envelope from his inner jacket pocket and placed it in my hands. It is time to tell them who you really are, he said. Loud enough for nearby tables to hear, the conversations around us dimmed as curiosity spread through the room. Father half rose from his seat, clearly perplexed by this unexpected development at his carefully orchestrated event. I opened the envelope with steady hands, though my heart raced within my chest. The moment I had both dreaded and longed for had arrived. Years of dismissal, of being the invisible daughter, the disappointment, had led to this precise moment. As I removed the documents from the envelope, Samuel placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. I took a deep breath, then stood, turning to face the room, to face my family, to face my truth. With the envelope in my hand, I walked slowly toward the main table where my family sat. The room had grown unnaturally quiet, all eyes following my unexpected movement. Father's expression shifted from confusion to annoyance at this disruption of his carefully orchestrated evening. Sherry, this is hardly the time, he began, his tone carrying that familiar note of dismissal. I stopped directly across from him. Samuel, a supportive presence just behind me. Actually, Father, I think this is exactly the time. Something in my voice, a newfound confidence, perhaps, caught his attention. He fell silent, watching me warily. Do you know what Phoenix Software is? I asked, my voice clear and steady. Father frowned. Of course I do. They are one of our main competitors in the educational software market. What does that have to do with anything? I placed the envelope on the table. Everything, actually. With deliberate movements, I removed the documents and laid them out for him to see. Corporate filings, financial statements, press releases prepared for tomorrow's announcement. My name is Sherry Lawrence, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. But in the business world, I am better known as S.L. Turner, founder and CEO of Phoenix Software. The silence that followed was absolute. Mother's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Jake's eyes widened, then a slow smile spread across his face. Father stared at the documents, then at me, disbelief etched in every line of his face. That is impossible, he finally said. His voice strained. Phoenix Software is worth $212 million as of yesterday's valuation, I finished for him. More than 4 times the value of Lawrence Technologies. I could almost see him processing this information. His businessman's mind calculating the implications even as he struggled with the concept that his disappointing daughter could have achieved this. You expect us to believe that you, who could barely pass basic math, created one of the most innovative software companies of the decade? Mother interjected, her voice brittle with skepticism. I turned to her, smiling gently. Yes, Mother. I, who could barely pass basic math because of my undiagnosed dyslexia, created Phoenix software, specifically to help people like me overcome learning challenges that the education system fails to address. Dyslexia? Mother echoed, as if the word were foreign to her. Yes. The learning disability you and Father refused to have me tested for because the Lawrence family does not have learning disabilities. The one that made me struggle through school while you both labeled me the disappointment. Father had begun examining the documents more closely, his businessman's instincts taking over. His face paled as he recognized the legitimacy of what he was seeing. Why would you keep this secret? Why operate under a pseudonym? He demanded, would you have believed me if I had told you? Would you have supported me, invested in my vision, celebrated my achievements the way you celebrated Jake's every accomplishment? His silence was answer enough. I did not create Phoenix to spite you, I continued, my voice softening. I created it because I saw a need that no one else was addressing properly. I created it to help people like me, who have been made to feel stupid or lazy or less than because their brains work differently. I turned to address the entire room. Phoenix Software's accessibility platforms are now used by over 3 million people worldwide. We have partnerships with 200 universities, 500 school districts, and over 1,000 corporations who recognize that accessibility is not just ethical, it is good business. One of Father's business associates spoke up. Lawrence Tech has been losing clients to Phoenix for the past 2 years. Their educational software division is struggling to compete. Father winced at this public acknowledgement of his company's vulnerability. I reached into the envelope and pulled out the final document, placing it directly in front of him. This is why Samuel is here today. Father scanned the document, his face draining of all color. This is an acquisition offer. Yes, I confirmed. Phoenix Software is offering to acquire Lawrence Technologies for $60 million, a 20% premium on its current market valuation. The offer expires at noon tomorrow. The murmurs that erupted around the room were a mixture of shock, amazement, and in some cases, poorly concealed amusement at the dramatic turn of events. Father stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Before he could respond, Jake stood up. I have known for almost a year, he announced. All eyes turned to him, including mine. Known what? Mother demanded. Jake smiled at me, a genuine smile full of what looked like admiration. That Sherry is S.L. Turner, that she founded Phoenix Software. You knew? Father sputtered. And you did not tell us? Jake shrugged. It was not my secret to tell. Besides, would you have believed me? Father looked between us, clearly struggling to process this reversal of the family dynamic he had established and maintained for decades. I always knew Sherry was brilliant, Jake continued. Just not in the ways you valued. While you were pressuring me to be the Lawrence legacy, she was out there building something remarkable on her own terms. I felt a rush of gratitude toward my brother. Despite everything, despite the preferential treatment and uneven expectations, he had seen me. Father finally found his voice again. Why reveal all this now? Why here? I met his gaze steadily. Because for 29 years I have been the invisible daughter, the disappointment, the one who would never measure up to the Lawrence name. Today you plan to publicly cement that family narrative by giving Jake everything while dismissing me with a modest trust fund, as if I were an obligation rather than your child. I took a deep breath. I did not come here for revenge or to humiliate you. I came because it is time for the truth. Time for you to see who I really am, not who you assumed I was. Mother had begun to cry quietly, whether from shock, embarrassment, or some belated recognition of her failure, I could not tell. Father looked down at the acquisition offer, then back at me. His expression had changed from disbelief to something more complex. I saw shock there still, but also calculation, and perhaps, just perhaps, a glimmer of respect. One of his business associates leaned over to whisper something, and Father nodded slowly. He straightened his shoulders, businessman mode fully engaged. Now, I think we should discuss this privately, Sherry, he said, his tone formal. We will, I agreed. Tomorrow at my office. Tonight is still Jake's celebration, and I have no intention of taking that from him. I turned to Jake. Congratulations on your graduation. It is a significant achievement, and you should be proud. Jake stepped around the table and, to everyone's surprise, pulled me into a tight hug. I am more proud of you, he whispered. You did this all on your own, without any of the advantages I had. As we separated, I saw something shift in the room. The way people looked at me had changed. No longer the pitted afterthought, I was suddenly someone of interest, someone who commanded respect. Samuel placed a hand on my shoulder. I think we should let everyone process this information, he suggested quietly. Your point has been made. I nodded, suddenly feeling the emotional weight of the moment. Years of invisibility, of quiet striving, of building something from nothing while carrying the burden of being the family disappointment, culminated in this singular moment of recognition. As Samuel and I turned to leave, Father called out, "Sherry, wait." I paused. Looking back at him, "The Lawrence spirit," he said, his voice carrying a note of wonder. "Perhaps you inherited it after all." It was not an apology. It was not even a full acknowledgement of the years of dismissal and diminishment, but coming from Thomas Lawrence, it was unprecedented. I smiled slightly. The phoenix spirit, Father. Rising from ashes to create something new. Something better. With that, Samuel and I departed, leaving behind a room full of stunned guests and a family whose carefully constructed narrative had just been completely rewritten. The days following Jake's graduation celebration were a whirlwind of activity. Phoenix Software's acquisition offer for Lawrence Technologies made headlines in the business world, with speculation running wild about the previously anonymous S.L. Turner, now revealed to be the overlooked daughter of tech mogul Thomas Lawrence. I maintained media silence, letting Samuel handle press inquiries while I focused on the more important matter, my family. Father called the morning after the revelation, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "I would like to meet to discuss the offer," he said formally. I agreed, suggesting my office rather than his. The power dynamic had shifted, and we both knew it, when Father arrived at Phoenix Software headquarters. His expression as he took in the modern, accessible design of our workspace told me he was seeing me, truly seeing me, for the first time. Gone was the dismissive glance, replaced by weary respect. My office reflected my values: clean lines, adaptable technology, and design elements specifically created to aid focus and minimize visual stress for those with learning disabilities. Father stood somewhat awkwardly until I gestured for him to sit. "This is impressive," he admitted, looking around. "Very different from Lawrence Tech." I nodded. We designed it with accessibility as the core principle, not an afterthought. For nearly an hour, we discussed the acquisition offer in purely business terms. Father had recovered his composure and negotiated with his usual acumen, suggesting modifications to certain terms. I listened, agreed to some points, and held firm on others. When the business discussion concluded, an uncomfortable silence fell between us. 2 decades of emotional distance could not be bridged in a single conversation. "Why did you never tell us?" he finally asked, the businessman facade cracking to reveal the father beneath. "Why would you have believed me?" I countered. "When I suggested I might have dyslexia, you dismissed it. When I showed interest in technology, you dismissed it. You had already decided who I was, Father, and it was easier to maintain that narrative than to see me differently." He flinched slightly at the truth in my words. "We made mistakes," he acknowledged, a significant concession from a man who prided himself on being right. "Your mother and I, we saw what we expected to see." "And Jake?" I asked. "Did you ever consider that perhaps the pressure you put on him might have been as harmful in its way as your dismissal was to me?" Father looked genuinely surprised by this suggestion. "Jake thrived under pressure. He has always been exceptional." "Yes, he has," I agreed. "But did you ever ask him if running Lawrence Technologies was what he wanted, or did you simply assume that your dream should be his?" The question hung between us, challenging years of unexamined assumptions. Our conversation ended without resolution, but it was a beginning. For the first time, we had spoken to each other as adults, as equals, rather than as the disappointed father and the disappointing daughter. Later that week, Jake came to see me at my apartment. I had expected awkwardness, perhaps resentment, at my dramatic entrance into his graduation celebration. Instead, he hugged me tightly the moment I opened the door. "That was the most amazing thing I have ever seen," he said, grinning widely. "You should have seen Dad's face when you put down those documents." We laughed together, releasing years of tension. Over coffee, Jake confessed something I had long suspected. "I never wanted to run Lawrence Technologies," he admitted. "I went along with it because it seemed to make Dad happy and because, well, it was the path of least resistance." "What do you really want to do?" I asked, his eyes lit up. "Medical research, actually. I have been fascinated by genetic therapy since sophomore year, but I never told Dad. He had my whole life planned out since I was 5. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "It is never too late to change direction, Jake. Is that what the Phoenix is about? Rising from the ashes, becoming something new?" I smiled. "Exactly." Our conversation turned to childhood memories, re-examined now through adult eyes. Jake confessed that he had often felt guilty about the differential treatment, but as a child had not known how to address it. I was given everything while you were given nothing, he said quietly. I knew it was not fair, but I did not know how to fix it. It was not your responsibility to fix it, I assured him. We were both children caught in roles our parents assigned us. As we parted, Jake hugged me again. I am proud to be your brother, Sherry. Always have been. His words healed something deep within me that I had not realized was still wounded. Mother was the most difficult. When she finally reached out, it was with a terse text message. We should talk. We met at a neutral location, a quiet tea room downtown. Mother arrived impeccably dressed as always, but there was a new fragility to her perfectly maintained facade. You humiliated us, were her first words, spoken in a harsh whisper. Everyone is talking. I sipped my tea calmly. I revealed the truth, Mother. There is a difference. She flinched. My entire social circle knows that we dismissed our daughter, who turned out to be a secret tech mogul. Do you have any idea what that feels like? Almost as bad as being told you are a disappointment your entire life, I suggested gently. Mother fell silent, her perfectly manicured hands fidgeting with her napkin. We did what we thought was best for you, she finally said. We did not know about the dyslexia. You did not try to know, I corrected. You had decided who I was, and anything that contradicted that narrative was ignored. Tears welled in her eyes, something I had rarely seen outside of carefully choreographed social moments. I do not know how to be your mother now, she admitted, the raw honesty surprising us both. I reached across the table, offering my hand. Perhaps we could start by getting to know each other as we actually are, not as who you thought I should be. After a moment's hesitation, she placed her hand in mine. It was a small gesture, but significant. In the weeks that followed, the acquisition was finalized. Phoenix Software acquired Lawrence Technologies for $62 million, with provisions to maintain employment for all current staff. Father accepted a position on the board of directors, bringing his experience while acknowledging the new leadership. My first act was to establish the Lawrence Phoenix Foundation, dedicated to identifying and supporting students with learning disabilities. The foundation provided testing, technology, and mentorship to ensure no child felt stupid or less than because their brain worked differently. As part of the foundation launch, I gave my first public interview as S.L. Turner, sharing my story of growing up with undiagnosed dyslexia and how it led to creating Phoenix Software. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of emails poured in from people sharing similar experiences, parents seeking help for their children, educators looking to improve their approach to learning differences. The healing with my family was slower, more tentative. We began with a family dinner at a restaurant of my choosing, neutral ground for all of us. The conversation was stilted at first, years of established patterns difficult to break. But gradually, something new emerged. Father asked about my business strategies with genuine interest. Mother mentioned a charity focused on learning disabilities that she thought might partner with the foundation. Jake talked excitedly about a medical research program he was applying to, with my full support. We were finding our way toward a new family dynamic, one based on who we actually were rather than who we had been expected to be. At one particularly meaningful dinner about 6 months after the revelation, Father raised his glass in a toast. To Sherry, he said, his voice carrying an unfamiliar note of humility, who taught us all that there are many forms of intelligence and many paths to success. Mother added, and to forgiveness, which we do not deserve but are grateful for. Jake finished, and to the Phoenix, who rises from ashes to create something new and beautiful. As we clinked glasses, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for most of my life. The journey had been long and painful, but necessary. I had not only built a successful company, but had finally broken free of the limitations others had placed upon me. My story was never about revenge or proving my worth to those who had dismissed me. It was about discovering my own value regardless of external validation, about creating something meaningful from my struggles, about transforming pain into purpose. In the end, perhaps the most valuable lesson was this: true success is not measured by wealth, or status, or others' approval, but by the courage to become fully yourself, especially when others cannot see your potential. So I ask you, what hidden strengths have you been told were weaknesses? What unique perspective might you offer that others have dismissed? Remember that sometimes the greatest innovations come from those who see the world differently. The Phoenix lives in all of us, waiting for the moment to rise. I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to be reminded of their own hidden potential. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember, your differences are not deficits, they are your superpowers.